Hello class. Rather than present my 13-page course project verbatim, or almost verbatim, I figured that a narrated PowerPoint presentation highlighting the key elements of the course project and selected initiative would be more digestible and useful to the audience. But yeah, here we go. So my name is Matthew Medvey, and this is my 9.2 course project presentation titled "My Environmental Procedures Are Better Than Yours, or Are They?" Alright, so the initiative I selected for my course project was utilization of biofuels for aviation fuels. I began the paper by highlighting the largest airline in the world, American Airlines. Some highlights about them is that their fleet is comprised of 956 aircraft with a seat capacity of about 257 million seats a year. They average 6,700 flights per day to 350 destinations in 50 different countries. They're a huge airline with a lot of influence in the industry as well as a significant emissions impact. So American Airlines has several initiatives to support ISO 14001 in relation with emissions reduction, such as retiring older model aircraft for more fuel-efficient aircraft, reducing aircraft weight, and committing to source 20 million gallons of jet fuel to renewable sources by 2025. But perhaps the most significant commitment, though, is to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So the reason I highlighted American Airlines, since they are the largest airline in the world, they could benefit significantly in the utilization of biofuels as aviation fuels and spurring further research and development that would complement their goal of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So just for some background, biofuels are liquid fuels that originate from biological materials such as trees, agricultural byproducts, animal fats, and crops and grass. Benefits of biofuels include they generate significantly less CO2, sulfur, and carbon monoxide emissions in comparison to conventional fossil fuels, as well as being renewable. So as far as procedure development, there are specific clauses within ISO 14001 that must be inclusive to the utilization of biofuels for aviation fuels, such as clauses 4, 5, 6, and 8. So clause 4 involves the understanding of the organization and the context, the needs and expectations of stakeholders, the scope of the environmental management system or EMS, and general requirements of the EMS. The EMS must be appropriate to the purpose and context of the organization, scale, and adhere to environmental objectives. Clause 5 involves leadership commitment, leadership support and influence to environmental policy and organizational roles, responsibility and authority. Clause 6 involves planning related to environmental compliance, obligations, and objectives. Some annexes of ISO 14001 that apply include Annex A.6.1.2, which details environmental aspects in relation to a life cycle perspective, typical stages of a product, and the scope of an organization's EMS. Finally, Clause 8 involves operational elements such as operational planning control, emergency preparedness, and response. So biofuel utilization must be inclusive and considered in an organization's EMS in relation to stakeholder expectations, EMS scope, general requirements, leadership commitments, environmental policy, organizational roles and responsibility, operational planning and control, applicable pollution prevention, environmental aspects, and compliance obligations. All right, Blue Eagle Biofuel Company Environmental Policy Procedures. So for my course project, I wrote as Blue Eagle Biofuel Company. So Blue Eagle Biofuel Company commits to identifying environmental strengths and weaknesses related to all operations being conducted and will proactively work towards minimizing CO2 emissions, community quality of life, and employee wellness while producing high-quality biofuels the aviation industry can trust and depend on. So the procedure 1 that we will initiate will be utilize solar electric hybrid biofuel or originating source cultivation extraction in order to minimize CO2 emissions and environmental impact. Procedure 2, utilize electric vehicles, EV, to transport biofuel originating source material to processing facilities to minimize CO2 emissions and environmental impact. Procedure 3, invest in product refinement facility filtration systems over the next 10 years to minimize CO2 emissions emitted during product refinement processes. Procedure 4, utilize EV vehicles to transport refined product to consuming destination to minimize CO2 emissions and environmental impact. Procedure 5, proactively work towards decreasing CO2 emissions by 15% over product life cycle by 2030. Procedure 6, continuously monitor production process and CO2 emissions and react to correct when necessary. Procedure 7, regularly audit all organizations' data within the EMS. Procedure 8, comply and adapt to all environmental regulations. So that's what we would do as far as our policy or our environmental policy procedures. All right. So the operational control policy of Blue Eagle Biofuel Company would be the purpose to provide documented instruction for the identification of operational controls related to environmental impact over the duration of the production of biofuels. The scope would be applicable to all processes and activities under the scope of Blue Eagle Biofuel Company Environmental Management System. The responsibility would be Environmental Health and Safety Officer. The procedure will be 4.1 to 4.6. So continuous analysis and action when applicable to Blue Eagle Biofuel Company's environmental strengths and weaknesses identified in alignment to established environmental policy. 4.2, operational control procedures are established for activities and processes related to all phases of biofuel production. 4.3, activities and processes referred to in section 4.1 involve instructions for controlling environmental elements and hazards related to biofuel production applications. 4.4 would be operational control procedures be carried out in accordance with all activities and processes that have an environmental impact. 4.5, make sure appropriate documentation and regular audits occur to ensure environmental commitment and compliance. And 4.6 is a master list of operational control instructions of every department be published and made available in Blue Eagle Biofuel Company's centralized database for quick access for anyone who shall be interested. Because of biofuels' numerous benefits and immense potential, increased utilization of biofuels within the current aviation industry would expedite innovation and become an important element within an organization's EMS. So, SWOT analysis, this was my favorite part of the paper. This slide displays the SWOT analysis of the utilization of biofuels for aviation fuels. Strengths of that include that the production of biofuels contribute to a renewable energy supply, produce fewer carbon emissions than traditional fossil fuels, are less toxic, and are more environmentally friendly than traditional fossil fuels. The aviation industry demonstrates a strong commitment to biofuel utilization and job creation to support biofuel utilization growth, with which complements economic and social sustainability. Weaknesses include biofuel being more land consuming than traditional fossil fuels. It's more expensive to produce. Significant financial investment is required for further research and development, production, distribution, and storage in order to be competitive with traditional fossil fuels. And there's currently a lack of existing supporting infrastructure compared to traditional fossil fuels. Opportunities include increased potential to decrease dependency on fossil fuels and decreasing price through economies of scale, governments establishing regulations requiring increased levels of biofuel utilization within the industry. Agricultural productivity has continuously risen over the last 2 decades, which reduces costs for feedstock production and increases overall efficiency. And finally, threats include biofuel production capability competing with traditional agricultural land use. Increasing demand for food and biofuels can result in competition for this land use. Threats to deforestation for land use and current lack of being cost competitive with traditional fossil fuels. All right, so the conclusion, ultimately, the expansion of the utilization of biofuels for aviation fuels is essential in order to effectively support the three pillars of sustainability into the future, decreasing CO2 emissions, and supporting overall aviation growth into the future. It will be interesting to witness what actualizes over the next few decades in regard to this subject. Here are the references I utilized for my paper. It's quite a few of them. Well, thank you all for listening to my presentation. I really enjoyed this class and feel that I learned a lot. Hope you did too. Anyway, have a great weekend, and it was nice learning and interacting with all of you over the duration of this term. Thanks. Bye.